It's like providing that electricity in your homes you don't feel, but the moment it goes off, hell breaks loose. And so is payroll.
I like the analogy. It's something so basic and fundamental that you almost expect that, yeah, it's running. Till the trains are running on time, everyone's good. Things are happening. Till there is electricity, everything is going good. The moment it's off is where people will be like, oh, this is so basic, so fundamental.
They say, hey, compliance is a growth strategy. So, see the change shift that has happened over the last several years. And I think people are now realizing that if they adhere to compliance, if they follow the guidelines and the framework and all that government has stipulated, I think it helps them to create a sense of transparency and trust within the organization. If you are in a service industry, 40 to 60% of your cost is employee and the payroll, right? So therefore, doing it in a compliant manner is so very important.
Looking forward, Rahul, let's put a lens another 3 to 5 years and then maybe beyond. What do you think will change in pay? All right. Lovely to have you, Rahul, on the Humanscope podcast. And we've been wanting to do this for a long time. I'm glad time has aligned.
Yeah, and thanks for the patience and great opportunity. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm intrigued to ask you a decade plus time in ADP. Talk us through your role. What do you do? And, what has been the exciting journey about?
Well, first of all, decade is not too long in ADP's parlance, right? So I think I've been sticking around because people jokingly say I'm too lazy to change jobs. But actually, what we do is amazing, right? So we do payroll for thousands of people, and we take pride in the fact that we pay people accurately, timely, and in a compliant manner across the globe, across 140 countries, right? Any given point in time, we would be paying 40 million plus people, right?
Wow.
So in India itself, thousands of workers get paid through ADP, and and the amount of satisfaction that we derive, right, in paying people timely their hard-earned wages is immense. And that's what drives us, right? And that's what perhaps I like doing as well.
So, what's the particular piece that drives Rahul, and what's the role that you currently play over here?
Okay, yeah. So, well, I look after a fantastic team, and they do a fabulous job across India and Southeast Asia. They help organizations transform their HR. And my job is continuously advocate payroll as an industry, right? Payroll as a process which enables organizations to pay their people timely, right? And my endeavor is to bring payroll function to the forefront, right? It's often seen as backroom, back end function done by a few HR executives or finance accounting folks, right? But actually, payroll is the heart and soul of an organization, right? So, just taking a minute more on this because I feel so passionate about it, right?
Yeah.
So we should not forget times during pandemic, right, where pay was so very important,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And all these unsung heroes, as I say, they ensure that people get paid in time, every time, right? So it's like providing that electricity, right? Electricity in your homes you don't feel, but the moment it goes off, hell breaks loose. And so is payroll.
I like the analogy that it's something so basic and fundamental that you almost expect that, yeah, it's running, right? uh, Till the trains are running on time, everyone's good. Things are happening. Till there is electricity, everything is going good. The moment it's off is where people will be like, oh, this is so basic, so fundamental. Wow, wow, that's interesting. And so, what got you into this, picking up this role? And did you know that there's an industry like this that existed before coming into it?
So in India, payroll is still a new phenomena, right? And it's kind of still at an early stages of evolution. Uh, Companies are realizing the power of outsourcing payroll. It's a very routine job if you look at it, but it's a process that has to be done accurately. It is very data sensitive and very data intense, and I think organizations are now realizing the power of payroll, right? So still early stages as far as India is concerned. And when ADP entered India, and that's how I joined ADP 12, 13 years back
Yeah.
through an acquisition. uh, I think the industry, payroll as an industry, it's growing by leaps and bounds, and thanks to our demographics as well. In India, India has the largest working population. So 500 million people as working population.
Wow.
And 100 million people is who we pay across the country, not ADP, but 100 million people is the workforce, formal workforce. And you can imagine it's significant growth opportunity, right? I mean, there is one industry that cannot get into recession, and that's payroll, I think.
Wow, that's quite a way to look at it. That people need to get paid, right? You can't go wrong with that. So, what do you think, looking at your long career in this space, how has this industry evolved? How has pay as a concept evolved? And because you've seen it change and evolve in India market, Asia market, so if you could share that with our viewers.
Yeah, I think there are three broad, I won't say eras, but three phases in payroll industry. So first phase where uh, people were using Excel files, Excel sheets, spreadsheets, maybe some basic software to
Yeah.
do payroll.
Yeah.
As long as payroll gets done at the end of the month, everything was okay. Then came HR tech, right? A lot of funky tools, nice
Yeah.
tools, etc., where customer experience or the employee experience became very important, right? So they wanted to see the pay slip, they wanted to have queries around it, they want to know, how much am I getting this month, and why this much of tax getting deducted, etc. So that's where softwares and outsourcing started taking
Yeah.
place. Then came pandemic, right? So where there was a significant shortage of payroll professionals, people were not able to pay in time because people were not available, or at least they were unsure whether their pay will come in time or not,
Yeah.
right? And then they realized that not only paying people is important, access to pay is important. Uh, and that's where the expertise element came in, right? So that's where people realize, hey, how we pay people, how do we answer their queries, how do we meet with ever changing regulatory requirements. That's where the compliance and expertise got intertwined, and companies started looking at payroll as a very serious function. And this is that era that we are in. And of course, as we progress further, employers and companies, they are looking at, how do we use this pay information to drive certain strategies, right? For example,
Yeah.
uh, how do we drive pay equity in the organization, right? Paying women and men for the same role equally, for
Yeah.
example, just one use case there. How do we use payroll information to drive wellness in the organization, financial wellness, right? The concept of financial wellness in the organization. So there are multiple dimensions which are now emerging as the payroll industry and the way we pay employees, that's kind of progressing and evolving.
Wow, and that's just the starting point of all the possibilities that this might have. you touched upon financial wellness, and I'm pretty sure that we loosely use this term quite a lot across various things. Do you want to go into a little bit of more detail on what is your take on what does financial wellness mean, what does it entail, and what power does it have for organizations to transform?
Okay, so no, that's a very good question, right? So, and I think let's understand what it does not mean, right? So financial wellness does not mean that you will get paid more. Uh,
Thanks for putting that out.
so I think that's definitely not what financial wellness is.
Mm,
Financial wellness is all about understanding what are your payroll component, how do you get paid, and why do you get paid, and what are your tax liabilities, how much tax deduction will happen. And when you understand the entire full scope, then you can also figure out how you can save taxes, right? How you can save for future, right? So there are multiple dimensions of it, but I think the fundamental core is understanding what you get paid and how you get paid, right? So I think and this particular aspect started as our demographics changed a little bit.
okay.
So we have in many organizations 25, 30% of people who are fresh out of college, and they needed a detailed understanding of it. So we did an analysis recently, and we found out that number of queries that come to a payroll department or an HR department, the majority of the queries, employee queries, they come from a segment which is less than 2 year old in the organization,
Wow.
right?
Interesting.
And their queries are related to why my tax is deducted higher this month than the previous month, right? How is this calculated like this, right? So very fundamental and basic queries. And that's where many organizations they embarked on this journey that as soon as new joiners join in, one of the first and the basic lessons is a understanding the payroll. I call it pay literacy, also tax literacy, and directly, indirectly, I believe that it adds to the tax collection that the country does, right?
Wow.
So I know our finance ministry will not give us any credit, but I think the more you know about taxes, the better you will be equipped to pay taxes.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you touched on the concept of financial literacy. I wish we do more in the schooling segment and how we grow up. The single most important thing is, how do I manage my money? How am I getting paid? How do I take care of it? And a lot of that starts happening when you start earning and not before that. It's not fundamentally taught. So there is a lot of merit in getting into that detailing, and if you can have support around that, I think that's just a big aid that any individual would have.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And just to re-emphasize on your point, payroll and payroll related compliance, they are never taught as a subject in any of the B schools, right? Not even the HR specialist schools, right? And I think that's a miss. Someone should think about it, right? I mean,
We should pick it up,
we
and
should pick it up.
we have a large audience in People Matters from some of the top B schools who consume our content and our research. And a lot of these B schools are also, their deans connect with us on various conversations. Maybe that's a point that we should pick up with them, saying that, payroll compliance is something that, we need to include as part of the core curriculum. Yeah, interesting you say that. I never realized that, such a basic thing and going unaddressed as part of this ecosystem. But Rahul, you also touched upon this whole narrative of certain segment of workers or people in the workforce where the queries are more, and who are typically younger generation, Gen Z, if I was to call it. How are they looking at pay differently? And I know there's a lot of conversation around Gen Zs looking at our workplaces differently. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of stories around the pay part of things as well.
Yeah, so I think Gen Zs, they are very conscious about the pay they get. And it's not about I get this much and that person gets this much. While there is a little bit of comparison, but I think they take pay very seriously, and they see this as an expression of their hard work, right? And I really value some of the comments that we hear from
Mm-hmm.
these Gen Zs. Uh, they want to understand more what would be their take home, how can they save more money, how they can contribute to many organizations run charitable and CSR
Yeah.
activities. They would like to participate in that, right? They also feel that organizations should personalize the pay to their
Yeah.
requirements, right? And for example, if there is a professional development training allowance, right? Or if there is gym allowance, uh, that really creates attraction with Gen Zs, right? And several of them, and all these within the scope of taxes, the tax framework that we have,
Yeah.
IT framework that we have. But I think organizations are now realizing that if they customize the pay components to Gen Zs, then it really helps them to engage them a little better than otherwise.
We clearly know, Rahul, that this is like a very different segment of workforce that's getting built. And then, but we also have some of the other generations that are there in the workforce as well. So when you touch about personalization, I'm pretty sure that it would go different ways for different generations and how they look at pay. What is your outlook on that?
Yeah, I think with technology coming in, administrative burden for personalization is becoming much less,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's one. And therefore, it allows organizations to personalize pay, right? So we spoke about Gen Z.
Yeah.
Similarly, the middle layer in the organizations, right? So maybe people 30s to 40s, right? They would have a lot of expenses, because they would like to buy house, they would like to have children for studies,
Yeah.
etc. So their requirements would be slightly different. And when we go beyond 40, that demographic segment, then you would focus on medical benefits,
Yeah.
for example, uh, m- uh, medical allowances and benefits that could cover their parents and a larger family and stuff like that. So whilst everything cannot be accommodated within the paycheck because
Yeah.
that's finite, but I think organizations are finding ways and means to engage the workforce much better. And I am of a proponent, I'm of the view that organizations cannot uh, always dole out more and more benefits, right? So there is always going to be
Of course.
a finite sum.
Yeah.
Everything has a cost. And therefore, personalization can work to a certain extent within the IT framework.
Mm. Because there's been a huge talk about personalization until what level you could personalize. It's almost as if that, people are wanting for one single problem there are like hundreds of solutions, and then there is limit to customizing that as well from an organization standpoint.
Yeah, I know. I keep getting these very interesting creative aspects of pay.
Okay.
I would say that, pay is one thing where we have to limit our creativity, right? So I think and that brings us to a very important aspect, which is compliance with income tax, compliance with statutory norms, payroll, PF, and ESI, and many other legislations. So I think there is only a degree of creativity and personalization that one can do with the payroll. So I think one has to be really careful about it, right?
And I think the whole compliance part of things, it's only increasing day by day. And we're just talking about one country. The moment you open it up for multi-country, it brings a whole new plethora. It's like opening a Pandora's jar to so many possibilities and challenges. How does one go about that, Rahul? Because the workforce is diverse. The workforce is working out of different locations. The demographics play a huge role. How do you look at this whole equation?
Yeah, it's very interesting, Pushkar, and thanks for asking this question because let's go back 10 years, right? People used to say, "Oh, compliance, it's a burden, it's a
Yeah.
cost," right? When we talk to young organizations, startups, and many others, right? They say, "Hey, compliance is a growth strategy." So see the change shift that has happened over last several years, and I think people are now realizing that if they adhere to compliance, if they follow the guidelines and the framework and all that government has stipulated, I think it helps them to create a sense of transparency and trust within the organization. And when that happens, then they can attract and engage talent much more. No one would like to join an organization which has doubts around compliances of some kinds, right? Secondly, I think the amount of time that you spend, management time that you spend in dealing with a non-compliance is humongous, right? So you avoid all that hidden costs, and I think when we go to suppliers or as a supplier, uh, everyone wants to deal with a compliant organization, right? So I think doing business is much easier if you are compliant, and now organizations and folks in the corporate world, that they're realizing that it's like there are no two ways around it, right? So which is I think an amazing thing to happen in the country, right? I also feel that government has done a lot, right? So all, be it income tax portal, be it PF, be it many other government portals, they are interconnected. So what happens is if you're non-compliant or if you miss something in one place, I think less than 48 hours you receive a notice, right? And I think we have to see notice in a little bit of a positive streak. It tells you, hey, things are not okay, fix it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing, right? So this digitalization of compliance,
Yeah.
I think it has helped us as a country, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of organizations, the moment the uh, PF gets deposited, you would not just get a message from the employer, but from the tax department, you get immediate notifications. So there can be alignment saying that this what has been taken from my pay has actually reached me via a different mean per se. And I think that digital ecosystem is so important, especially in growth organizations, because you don't start putting so much importance to some of these things, and suddenly you ramp up your workforce and then you are in a soup.
No, absolutely. And if you are in a service industry, 40 to 60% of your cost is employee and the payroll, right? So therefore, doing it in a compliant manner is so very important, right?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times it might sound the stuff might sound a little boring to a lot of founders, and I'm not even getting into the HR side of things, but it just has such a big impact. The brand trust erosion that it can cause is huge.
It's huge, and I think now founders are spending that time and effort to ensure that, whilst they do so many things to keep employees, retain employees, and build a ecosystem which is very growth centric. I think the nucleus is payroll, and many founders are realizing that, right from stock options and configuration and customization of deferred payments and long-term payments, the day-to-day activities around payroll is important, right? And since you spoke about startups and founders, one more thing which really stuck me, when I was talking to a few folks last few weeks, they feel payroll creates a can create a very different kind of culture within the organization.
Wow.
For example, they're using payroll data to create a balance between gender pay, right? So, how much pay men gets versus how much pay women gets, right? So, and as you can imagine, right? So there is always a difference, and this payroll data is being used to create a kind of a parity and equity, and that really drives fairness trust, transparency in the system. And I think that's very important for new age organizations.
I wanted you to focus on having this data means what possibilities for organizations.
Yeah.
Because one is having someone like ADP
Yeah.
uh, do this, but it's not just about paying people, but the whole analytics that could be built for creating far bigger things for organizations.
So two very interesting use cases, which are close to my heart, and I think these can have very transformational impact in the country. So the first one is driving uh, pay equity between men and women, right? So what we call as gender pay equity, and what it means is generally we have seen in organizations women get paid less than men because some of the functions manned by those functions are manned by men, like IT, senior executives, sales, for example. Higher paying functions are, they have more men than women, as we know, right? So one has to recalibrate and calibrate all the time the pay equity, right? So how much, if $100 is the payroll, how much is being paid for men and how much is women? Ideal situation is 50-50,
Yeah.
right? But that's not easy to achieve and it requires calibration. The payroll data can help us do that, right? All the time. So that's one use case. And just imagine an organization which continues to do that, and over a few years, they reach near equilibrium, right? Not ideal state will always be very difficult. The message it gives to the workforce is very transformative. Hey,
Yeah.
this is a fair organization that I want to join. The motivation that people would have in the workforce would be very, very different, right? So that's one, and many people are following this as a strategy, right? The other thing that I want to talk about is payroll transparency, right? So it's transparency is not like Pushkar, I know your salary and you know me. So that's not transparency in its truest form, right? So payroll transparency is about, for a role, for example, a sales role, uh, at this particular level with certain tasks, uh, how much that role is paid. Now, generally, what happens is, when we recruit people from the market, someone is at 10 lakhs, we give like 30% increase, we give it 13 lakhs, right? But that role actually commands a pay of 20 lakhs, right? So we should offer that pay because the work being done by that new incumbent would be equivalent to 20 lakhs, right? So this is what is called as payroll transparency, right? And ADP does that, right? So we don't ask people how much uh, what's your salary the previous job. We say, hey, this job at ADP pays you this much, right? And it really work wonders, right? And we drive payroll transparency, payroll pay equity through that, right? So that's a second use case.
Wow, wonderful. I've always wondered when folks change jobs, and you're negotiating your salary, it always starts with, oh, how much are you making in your current organization? I was like, how is that relevant? What value can I add for you? You should pay me according to that. Because that's my fair pay. My fair pay is not what I earn today. I would have, that's the very reason that I'm trying to look for a newer opportunity as well. I want to grow, I want to earn more, I want to learn more, but pay has such an important component.
And the psychological message that it gives to the new joiner, hey, I was getting 12 lakhs, but now I get 20 lakhs,
Yeah.
right? The messaging is very different. Hey, this is a fair pay organization. This is the output that's required for that role. And this is what, it's so transparent and so equitable, right? So,
Yeah, I think that'd be lovely if more organizations could start doing some of that stuff. Now, since we're on this whole aspect, Rahul, of pay, and today's era is a lot about skills, right? We are in a skills economy. uh, you know while degrees have their own importance, they're also being overshined by skills, that hey, I have this skill, then I can command a certain position, and by position it also invariably translates down to how much do I get paid. So how do you look at this whole skills economy taking over and organizations being ready about paying differently as per the skills?
Yeah, so I have my own personal perspective
Okay.
on it, right? So uh, I think skills have to translate into higher output at the end of it,
Yeah.
right? So otherwise, organizations will start hiring degree certificates, and these days, certificates. These are all e-courses and things like that.
Hmm.
So I think at some point in time, skills would have to translate into a certain amount of productivity, higher productivity, and higher output to an organization, right? So I think, yes, you would like to have a variety of skills, more so prominent in technical areas of work. But otherwise, in general functional areas, higher skills, if they don't translate into higher productivity, higher output, I'm not sure they will get paid differently.
Does the data also suggest that, as per you?
It's difficult to glean that data from within the country and the data sets that we have. I think it would require a lot more work in the coming years. One of the challenges in the country, and we all know, structured data is not easy to get,
Yeah.
right? So I think now government has put certain portals in place where the job data is getting compiled, but it is not where it should be. So skills data again is all over the place.
Yeah.
So I think it'll take some more time, some more years before we get an accurate picture around it.
Yeah. A lot of people today feel that, especially the younger generation, that, what, if I brush up myself on a certain skill, I should be paid very differently. And I like the objectivity that you bring in, saying that, at the end of it, what's the outcome?
No, I think you asked a very relevant question. So I was talking to my son who is like 18 years old. He's doing his first year college engineering, and in and he's having his holidays these days, and uh, he's doing one course after the other course. And I said,
Yeah.
hey, why are you doing this, right? So uh, I think there is a little bit of peer pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there is a sense of, hey, I should do everything, I should learn everything. So maybe that's a little bit of sense. And I don't know if they really know the real reason and the outcome of doing a particular course, right? So I think there's a little bit of a nebulous phase that many youngsters, especially Gen Z, are going through. Uh, I would say my own personal opinion is we should do a course only when we think it's relevant, contextual, and it will benefit in progressing ourselves to the next level.
Lovely. We've talked a lot on Gen Z. What about exec pay, Rahul? What are trends that you are seeing in that segment? Because it's always the highest paid jobs in an organization. The media loves it when some of the listed company pay packages. I'm sure in US it gets talked far more, and India is also following on that part. What are trends that you're seeing in that segment of pay?
So that's a slightly delicate space to talk about, but I think at an exec level, it's always pay for performance that
Yeah.
matters the most, right? So whilst we see newspapers and a lot of lofty numbers there, but I think it's all related to stocks, the company performance, right? Whilst the number looks good, and especially it gets sensationalized, and we've seen that over the last few weeks, but I think the base pay is very consistent, and then it has to do with the stock price and company performance and many such things, right?
Mm, mm.
Uh, uh, I would reserve my comments whether it's good or bad, but I guess, yeah, it does require a fair bit of hard work as well.
Yeah, it's a different ball game altogether, right? I want to touch upon, because your role also spans across different regions, Rahul, multiple countries. And organizations today have workforces that are so diverse in different geos. It comes with its own challenges. Many a times, these countries want to have workforce because of the gig nature of workforce. You might immediately want a solution in some country where you're expanding. Now, how does that gets taken care? Because sometimes it becomes almost nightmarish for a CEO or a CHRO to do that at scale in multiple organizations. What could be your message to some of them, saying that, how should they go about it?
I think organizations today, they are grappling with multiple systems, right? So for any CEO to understand what's happening around, I think data is important, and we believe in data, right? So, and data can be unified, standardized, simplified, understood only when it is integrated, right? When the data source are not replicated, right? Or when there are not multiple data sources. So one thing that we always advocate is get all the data in one place, right? And that's huge amount of work, right? Because people have different countries, different systems, different paths of evolution, etc., right? So getting data in one place is one important thing, and that's why companies want to integrate payroll and understand what's a demographic across all the countries, what's the workforce composition, the payroll structures, and many other aspects of governance come into play, right? And when a CEO or a CHRO or CFO is equipped with those insights, then they decide uh, the right level of decisions, right? Most of the companies, they are taking, if not global decisions, regional decisions,
Yeah.
right? So they're going beyond the borders of a particular country, and they're saying, hey, how do we manage workforce here to there, always looking at optimization of costs and efficiencies and things like that. So it's becoming a very interesting play, so to speak, right? And it varies if you're a manufacturing organization versus a services organization, right? So the play varies and the intensity varies, but I think most of the organizations are looking at data in a very holistic manner, and especially the payroll data. And they are kind of looking at, hey, how do we bring everything under one roof, under one system, right?
Yeah, yeah, because the compliances are so different.
Yes, absolutely. And compliances are so very different, and no one would like to be on the wrong side of the
Yeah.
compliance, right? So it's easier to manage compliances if they are unified systems, and if the data is in one place.
I would rely on an expert like you to sort of guide some of them. We were opening a couple of geos for People Matters. We're locally hiring some of them, and then suddenly, we had the talent. We had figured out what our strategy was, and suddenly we were grappled with this whole thing. Now we need to actually get them on board, but we don't have structures around compliance. We don't have structures around payrolls. Our way of structuring the whole incentives parts is so different in the current geos versus what is expected out of people in that geos. Within the same team, the expectations of the incentive structures is so different, because you have components of team members in different geos. All of that complexity is, it's only increasing.
Yeah, and interesting thing about compliances, and whichever country you take, is like they're very dynamic, right? They keep changing, and it's good for our business because. But yeah, I think, and this is where human touch and expertise comes in. Softwares and automation and technology alone cannot work well, right? So.
We've just, especially in India, we've just starting to conclude on the appraisal season. One of the biggest pain points, Rahul, is people getting wrong salary increments in their initial change with the initial changes, the error rates in some of that. And while organizations might look at it, let's say I have 10,000 plus workforce, the error rate might be in certain number percentage, but for that, even if it's for that one individual, it just means a hell breaking bad experience. uh, what do you think? How much error rate is there in the industry?
So I think I'll not be so worried about the error one paycheck not correct, because
Yeah.
that can always be
Yes.
corrected. I think when we did a lot of studies across India, we find that the errors happen in calculation of overtime,
Okay.
calculation of shifts, right? How many shifts, who has done. Uh, the entire time and attendance piece, which is the most important input for payroll, I think that often does not get synchronized well with payroll, right? So, because most of the organizations, they have different time and attendance capture systems in
Yeah.
different branches, different offices, different people doing manual activity in normalizing them, regularizing them, etc. So I think those are the elements that require tons of attention, and that's one of the reasons. Whilst one of the reasons we thought, we will have time and attendance as an integral part of our payroll system, so that end to end can be integrated and seamlessly calculated and accurately calculated for employees and employers.
Yeah, some of the unorganized sectors, what I have been told of, and some of our data shows, it actually is in about 6 to 8% of errors. In some cases, even higher.
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised, Pushkar, and my heart goes out to those people whose time is not getting captured
Yeah.
well, and whose overtime is not getting captured well because of whatever reasons, and therefore they get underpaid or less paid and things like that.
Yeah, and in life you're so busy. Many of them don't even find opportunity to get and see clarity
Yes,
back.
yes.
Business as usual, business goes on, the person also moves on, saying that okay, maybe there was something
Yeah.
that happened, but at the end of it, the employees at loss as well.
Yeah, and I think in India this is becoming a commonplace. Hey, we have to pay people what they have worked for. That sense of responsibility is coming in, right? And it's much more acute than ever before. And I think people are investing, organizations are investing in uh, capturing data, biometric devices, attendance capture data, so that things can flow into payroll a lot more systemically than before.
Interesting. And this is like a whole ecosystem in itself, right, Rahul? Of how do you look at it? Like from someone who is just getting the salary credited in the account might not know, what has gone behind making that salary credit in their account.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of activity goes behind it, and I know someday people will start appreciating it, and payroll guys will have a seat on the table in the boardroom as well, right? So I
Yeah.
think those days are not far off.
Yeah, I wish so. I wish so, because the amount of possibility to that conversation that they could bring in uh, with more data and analytics, that will hold true power. And I think that's also a CHRO's edge, if I was to look at it, to talk about real cost numbers, real impact numbers in board discussions. Many a times the metrics are on attrition and some of the other aspects, but at a board level, when you are discussing hard costs, this could just mean a very different dynamics.
Yeah, I think so, and I think the world is changing because the attrition data, etc., is okay, it's standard, but I think as the workforce composition is changing, you have gig workers, you have freelancers, you have contractors, and you have permanent folks, right? So as the employee composition is changing, the cost elements can vary, and a CHRO would have to manage this entire spectrum as a portfolio, right?
Yeah.
So one with an eye on optimization, but also which produces the maximum impact, right? And I think those data insights would be very, very useful as the talent becomes scarce. And of course, as the payroll cost goes up, one would start looking at it a little bit more microscopically.
Yeah. In your experience, Rahul, since you brought up the payroll cost as a topic area, uh, what's the segment or employee size of organizations where you feel that, the cost really starts ramping up?
Difficult to say. Depends on what's the size and the nature of the business, right? So I'd seen in many product organizations, right, which do uh, very high intensity of research, and I'm talking about the R&D
Yeah.
type of research, right? The cost of payroll could be as high as 60-70%, right?
Wow.
Uh, so it all depends on organization. There are BPO organizations where the cost of payroll will not be very high if they are in a certain level of certain kind of BPO level of activities, whilst the numbers may be very high. So difficult to generalize. You know, depends on the industry and the nature of the work that they do.
We now are seeing a lot of workforces again in different geos, and different countries have different inflation numbers, different growth numbers. The GDP growth numbers also have an impact on the pay components that organizations look forward to. uh, how does one go about normalizing that and equating that along in different geos? And it's so dynamic these days.
It's dynamic, so I think it has to be per country,
Okay.
and the multiple factors have to go in, and I don't know what all those factors are, but I think it has to do with inflation, cost of living,
Yeah.
right? uh, and I think inflation is a very, very important factor in determining the merit increase and year on year increase. And of course, India is a very interesting country, high GDP.
Yeah.
Nowadays moderately high, or rather on the lower side inflation, right?
Yeah.
So let's see what would be the increase in salaries, but I would imagine as the country matures, gets into a different phase of activity, uh, our salary hikes 8 to 9 to 10%. I don't think they would sustain.
Yeah.
We are at a very high level of average merit increases, right?
Yeah, I would agree as well. And then there are creative ways of approaching this as well. It's not just about uh, you know pay increase in percentage, but also on growth, on learning, and some of the other aspects. And then the whole benefits ecosystem comes into the play as well.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And many of us as employees, we have to think a little harder. The more every year we get paid, our output and the productivity has to increase, because that has
Yes.
to balance out, because margin pressures will continue to increase within the organizations as well. So I think continuously increasing payroll will have somewhere a downside as well.
It's a problem in the making. We'll reach there as it goes. uh, Now, looking forward, Rahul, let's put a lens another 3 to 5 years, and then maybe beyond. What do you think will change in pay?
So I think in India, uh, payroll will become a strategic subject because of the data that it contains. People will start valuing payroll as a function, how people get paid. I think it'll get more streamlined. It's already happening, right? With new tax norms, and the ease of paying people will definitely increase significantly. The insights that get driven from pay data would be far more sharper, right? And that will help companies to formulate different strategies, right? India is a diverse workforce, right? So the more insights CHROs will have, the better would there be decision making. So I think a revolution is about to happen in payroll over last 10 years. Nothing earth shattering, but I think it's going to be very incremental. And as I said earlier, right? So if some of the organizations using pay data can drive gender pay equity,
Yeah.
pay transparency, I think India would be a very different country, maybe next 10 years, 15 years, right? We would truly be a Viksit Bharat.
Wow. I think there could be multiple of those possibilities. How do you see that expanding if you put the Asia lens?
I think various countries in Asia are at various speeds.
Yes.
But I think my sensing is India being a very large country, very large demographics. So whatever happens in India will find a voice in other countries as well.
Would the need of more pay ever drop down, or people will still want more pay, more fixed?
No, I think this is something people would always want more. I would always like more.
I would want
So,
to.
so I think, but people will appreciate what they are getting.
Do you think people getting more data personalized will sort of address this quench of, how much I'm getting? Do I need to get more? Will it help?
So I think people will always find that the cost of buying things is increasing,
Yeah.
right? So they would always like to spend more, and therefore they would always like to get more, right? So I think that's a vicious cycle, right?
Yeah.
So I would like to save more, get more, spend more, right?
I would agree. Everyone would want to. But I think that aspect that you brought in on financial literacy, that I feel will give a lot of cushion for people to understand, uh, how and what role does money or finances play, not just at an individual side, but also at an organizational side as well. Sometimes I feel organizations hide too much because they don't want to put some of the ugly picture out. I've always believed, if you're not doing that great, put it out in front of people. If you are struggling in certain areas, put it out in front of people. If you're doing well, of course you will celebrate. But if you're not doing well, because the business nature is so dynamic in today's time, you can't win every day. There are going to be times when things are not going to go north, they are going to go south. But I think just being transparent with people, saying that here is where we are and this is what we are trying to do to come out of it, that level of transparency, now be it business performance, linked pay structures, or what they can give to their employees, I think there is a lot of merit in doing that in an authentic way from leaders side, is what I feel.
No, I agree with you, and more organizations are realizing it, Pushkar. I know of many cases where uh, they want to take people, employees, in the journey that they embark on.
Yes.
And many a times things do not go as per the plan, right? Most of the times, rather, right? But people are happy to walk through that difficult patch, right? Just because, they own the entire journey, they own the process. So I think organizations and CXOs are becoming a lot more communicative and very contextual in explanation as well. And I think things are changing. We are moving towards a world of greater transparency.
No, I think that those were some amazing thoughts, Rahul. Loved your authentic, candid responses on some of them. Pay as is a very individual thing, and then of course from an organization view, it just builds up such an important component. I wish we go more deeper on data and what it means, and more CHROs and CFOs look at the possibility of harnessing that for their advantage, and even creating more meaningful impact on people's lives as well, because at the end of it we need to put the people at the center of it. And I wish more and more of your customers, there are many of them that you serve, and that impacts millions of people as well, because the end results is the millions of lives that you are impacting. So I hope we are able to do that in a better way, in a more integrated way as we progress. So thank you so much for spending time having this conversation, and really looking forward to some of the newer aspects that you and ADP would be building for the community. So excited about that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.